Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. Roger Abel. I've got Elias Randall next to me as usual. Elias, summer's starting to kick off. Any big plans coming up other than coming to see me at the lake?
That's the highlight of my summer.
I like it. It should be a highlight. We'll have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will.
So as a lot of people know, things are changing rapidly in our economic landscape. And as we do this show, the S&P 500 had turned positive on the year. We're 3% off all-time highs. And I've been having a lot of conversations with people about what to expect going forward. Okay. And I don't know what you're telling people, but I'm still telling people just expect more volatility and a little bit of chaos. And I said, that doesn't mean it's a bad result in the end. It just means there's going to be volatility and chaos. I think people hear the word volatility, they hear the word chaos, and they interpret that as bad. It's not necessarily bad. In fact, it probably provides some opportunity for people if they've got a proverbial extra spare tire.
Yeah, I mean, it could be bad in the short term. No one wants to see their account go down, but I'm same talking points. I think investors are just better off expecting volatility right now. It's very possible that it could go either way. I mean, we could see a big spike, or we could just see the market continue to grind higher for the rest of the year.
It may.
There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that there's not enough clarity on. I think
the one thing you have to look at is what's the economy doing. And generally, employment's still strong. Inflation is arguably under control, even though the Fed keeps saying they expect inflation. The numbers last month were way better than expected. You know, inflation month over month was expected at 0.3%, came in at 0.2, 2.4% 2.3 year over year inflation. So inflation really has subsided, even though they expect it to kind of come back in the future. And the bond market is pricing in inflation. But I think when you have to look around, what's really happening in the economy is look at how people are spending money. And I've been having this conversation with people a lot recently. And most people have agreed with me, and most people aren't spending any money. People just aren't buying things right now. Like, they're buying their normal day-to-day stuff. Outside of cars, there was a big rush to buy cars, but people aren't really buying that many homes. People aren't making big purchases. Businesses aren't doing CapEx, especially smaller businesses. I have a person I know who's looking at buying a really nice boat. Said, hey, I'm not going to do anything right now until there's a little more clarity on what's happening with the tariffs and all this other stuff. And then you throw in there, we've resumed the collection of student loan payments. There's been a faction of people out there who haven't made a student loan payment in 5 years and thought they were just never going to make them again. And now we've started collecting on those student loans, money that people borrowed and committed to pay. We're going back and trying to collect the money, and people are out and they're having trouble readjusting to making their student loans.
Yeah, and as delinquencies rise, at least for student loan or borrowers start paying that back, that does mean, to me, that means there's going to be less discretionary money for consumer spending. I don't know it'd be interesting to know, I'm guessing that's money that's either allocated just towards discretionary spending or paying back the debt. I don't know that anyone of the people that are potentially delinquent, are they saving that money? Are they investing that money?
No.
I would doubt it.
Here's what's happened. It's just like any normal household bank account. If you have a student loan payment that was $500 a month, let's say, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter what the number was. It was $500. And all of a sudden, for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you haven't had to make any payments. You reallocated the $500 somewhere because
it's
most
going somewhere.
People aren't disciplined enough to see the 500 and be like, man, I should really keep saving this. And how I know that is we go through this exercise with retirees when they talk about getting income into their bank account. And what do we tell them? Take what you need to live on, But for your big purchase and all this other stuff, just take a one-time distribution. And the reason we do that is human nature is once it hits the account, we're going to figure out how to allocate the money. So I think there's going to be a massive problem in the student loan market because people have reallocated the money and they've spent it. And some of the spending is going not to non-discretionary or to discretionary items. A lot of it's probably going to groceries and a lot of the stuff that has increased in cost over the last 5 years. I very rarely take a look at what my homeowner insurance premium renewal is, right? It's all escrowed into my mortgage payment. So I don't really go look at what the amount I'm paying is because I'm not going to switch. I was shocked at what I was paying. It was about double what I thought I was paying. And maybe it went up that much just in the last year or two, but it was significantly more than I thought.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that's just money that's not going to be available for other things. And I guess so there's going to be there's 40 some million people that have student loans.
42 million people hold federal student loans, and 5.3 million of those are in default right now. And another 4 million of those borrowers are late stage delinquencies, which are basically 90 days past due. So 20%, 25, what's the number there? Yeah, 25% of the people.
Yeah, it's almost basically 10
Our
million
90 days
if you
are
round a little bit.
Yeah, well, let's call it 25% of the borrowers are over 90 days past due.
So do you think with stuff like this, and then as like consumer sentiment maybe becomes more negative, which I'm seeing both sides. I'm seeing people make the argument that consumer confidence is coming back. I'm seeing people say that sentiment is getting weaker. Do you think we could have some like slowdown in economic, maybe even recession too, just because consumers are just not as confident in their personal situation? Like if enough people stop spending and start getting prepared for slower times, could it be like a sentiment driven economic slowdown?
I think that's what drives most of it. Like people inherently stop spending money out of fear.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Fearful what's happening. I think we're seeing that now. But also they stop spending money when they're out of it.
So we probably have a combination of both.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day what I thought, and I'm not predicting. I said, we'll have a recession. I just don't know when. It could be this year. It could be in 8 years. I don't know when it's going to be. Here's what I know, though. Most people, if you're prepared for that situation, which is 6 months in emergency fund, lower my debt, all the things we talk to people about, it won't be that bad. I mean, I think people have recency bias of the last recession, which was the Great Recession, which was more closely related to a depression, right? We were a couple decisions away from real disaster if the government didn't step in and do some bailouts, like some really bad stuff. I mean, it already was bad. Think about that. What was unemployment? I think it was around 10%. I mean, it was really bad.
National banks were on the verge of bankruptcy.
Right. So that's the last recession.
It's also called the Great Financial Crisis.
Right. But that's the last recession that people remember.
Yeah.
So everybody comes back to that and says, well, it's going to be this bad. Well, maybe not. There's just a lot of different factors. But yeah. I think in general, the economy's slowing and you can see it. People just aren't buying the same amount of stuff. They're out. Credit cards are tapped out. I went and looked up. Do you know how many adults 18 and over in the United States? There's 262 million adults in the United States. I don't know how many went to college, right? But it doesn't matter. So almost 4 to 5% of all U.S. adults are in student loan delinquency past 90 days. Think about that. It's 4% of the people. So out of every 10 people walking down the street, 4 of those people are 90 days past due.
And what percentage of
Or
that
for every 100 people, four out of 100 are past due on their student loans.
And, right. And then for all those people, how many also have credit cards?
All of them.
How many also have a car payment?
If you're delinquent on a student loan, you have a car payment.
Yeah,
that
you
probably
absolutely
can't pay.
have other debt, or else why would you be delinquent?
Right. You wouldn't be delinquent.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. And unfortunately, we as a society didn't prepare people to pay these back. I just don't think most 18-year-olds that enter into a student loan agreement really understand what they're doing. My generation.
How would they?
They wouldn't. I think about my generation. And we were all told if you don't get a college degree, you'll amount to nothing. Like, it was expected that you get a college degree. That was the only way to be successful.
So you know what's crazy about what you just said?
It's all just marketing.
It is, but here's what's crazy about it. Our fourth grader, so our daughter's in fourth grade in 10, and she made a comment to me the other day that she thought if she didn't go to college, she wouldn't ever be able to get a good job, something along those lines. So I let her know, well, that's not necessarily true. There are plenty of people who did not go to college and become very, very successful. So I was really trying to highlight the point to her that's not like a golden ticket. That doesn't really mean anything. But how does a fourth grader already think that? I know I've never told her that.
Oh, it's
she never heard
school.
that from me.
Have you ever watched the Dave Ramsey and Mike Rowe interview? You know who Mike Rowe is?
Yeah,
He's the Dirty Jobs guy.
I'm sure I've seen clips of it.
He actually, because he's from Mike Rowe is from a family of blue collar, hardworking people. And he reflected back to, I think it was high school, and he was talking in this interview that there were actually posters in the schools when he was in school. And one side of the poster was all bright and vibrant, and it was going to get your college degree. And the other side of the poster was dark, and it was a garbage man, like, picking the trash up. Like, but that's signaling, like, that is being ingrained into your kid's head as to what you need to do.
Subconscious too.
There are definitely jobs that higher education are super important. The vast majority of people going to get college degrees today, they're not even going to use them.
Speaking
If you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, you're going into finance, it matters if you want to have a job. But if you're just going for, what do they call that? Just general education. I don't even know what Bachelor of Arts, general education. They have that?
I'm not sure if that's a degree, but
whatever
yeah.
Like somebody who's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, so this is what I'm going to get.
Yeah. And speaking of, Mike Rowe and that dirty jobs, and I do think there's going to be at least a portion of younger people that, they might go to some sort of get some education after high school. But think if you were 18 right now and you decided, I'm going to go to the local community college and get like an associate's and just like business and marketing so I can understand how that works. And I'm going to learn a trade. The opportunity to start businesses in those industries is going to be very big, especially the longer we go. Because one, if you look at average age of people in those type of industries, too old. There's not enough people going into it. So in another 15, 20 years, if you're a very skilled HVAC person, plumber, electrician, carpenter, contractor, you're going to be able to name your price.
They already can.
Right. They're already doing it now, and it's only going to get better or worse, depending on how you look at it.
The more people that don't do those jobs, the more it's going to cost.
Right. And especially if you could get a group together, right? That's like, hey, we're young. We're going to figure this out. You're going to have competition. There's still people that are running very good businesses, and they're not retirement age yet.
But their capacity's already maxed.
Right.
Go out there and try to find someone to show up at your house when you have a problem in the next 3 days.
No.
The only way you're going to pay a lot. And we're only looking at our local economy. If I go down to the lake and I need something done, good luck. Like, oh, your air conditioning isn't working. We'll see you in 4 days. Well, it's 95 degrees. What's that going to do for me? And yeah,
There's not enough labor.
There you go. It's funny that you brought that up because we were sitting around on a Friday night after a couple coffees and we were talking about this exact thing. My wife and I, we were talking about, how we're forced, got to go to college, right? And what's the starting salary of a person out of college?
Oh, I have no idea. Nationally, I don't know, probably between 40 and 50,000.
Right. And then what is the earning potential of that job? Like, it's good, but it's not like 200,000 or 300,000 a year, right?
Most jobs, probably not.
So we started just brainstorming and talking about the individuals we know that have successful businesses and do really well. And outside of the people with specialized degrees, the individuals that we know who are doing really, really well, they don't have college degrees. They're in the trades and they started a business and it got bigger and bigger and bigger because of pure demand. I think a lot of people think you're going to go get into the trades and you're just going to go work for someone forever and not do anything. But what really happens in most of those trade jobs, if you're good, they evolve and pretty soon you have your own business. I think back to, we had a company in town, this would have been in 2009. We were selling a house. We needed to have some stuff done. It was a father-son team. And they were just like, they had one real estate contact that would have them come in and fix up whatever needed to be done in a house, right? Today, they have a real estate management company with like 5 buildings and trucks all over town. And, people pay them $250 to move a sofa. Like, they've grown into this real company over time. And there was no formal education. It was just, I showed up, I worked hard, I did a good job, charged a fair price, and my business just grew and grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, and the demand, to me, it's going to grow for a couple reasons. One, there's just not enough people in those jobs. And then as we go through the generations, people are less and less capable of doing things for themselves.
They actually just don't know. I'll give you a great example. Remember the other day I told you my refrigerator wasn't working correctly?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, there's like a vent on the front. Just go clean it up.
That's for a refrigerator, that's a starting point.
Right.
Did it work?
I didn't know because I wasn't taught that. Like,
yeah,
of course it did.
a
Megan
lot
comes
of
out and I got the whole thing tore apart. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, Elias told me to clean this vent on the front and it was just all stuffed. She's like, it's actually working a lot
vacuumed
better.
Underneath it.
Yeah, I vacuumed underneath.
Yeah.
I pulled the grate off. I washed it, got everything off. But just
that's
little
like the
stuff
most
like that.
Yeah, that's the most common.
Like for you
with the refrigerator, because that's those coils you saw the coils.
Yeah.
So they get dust and hair and all that stuff. They can't sense. They have no ability to tell what the temperature is. So then it just runs.
But to my point, somebody in your family taught you about that.
Correct.
Right? Nobody taught me about that.
I did.
You did. But if you didn't, guess what's going to happen?
That
no one's going to teach my kids about it. And the further away we get, generations get from knowing how to do this stuff, the more valuable the tradespeople become. And it's more technical now too. I mean, the more technology gets in there, the more valuable these guys are going to be because you're going to have stuff that needs a computer. Good example, a tractor. I have a lot of friends who hunt. They don't want to buy a new tractor because the only way to fix it's with a computer. They have to diagnose it. They want to get something that's pre-computer. So you don't have to diagnose it. You can go diagnose it yourself and fix it. But there's so many computer parts now that make it challenging and make those specialized jobs even more important.
Yeah, which the farm families using tractors, they want the technology because they want all the data.
Yes.
They want the inputs, but yes, like
it's making them more efficient. But
right.
guys
Someone
like me,
hunting that just needs a tractor to do odd jobs, you're better off it just being more mechanical. Because what data are you going to track? You're not tracking, you know, the dryness of your corn. You're not tracking how many bushels. You just need
you're
it to
just
do
saying
jobs.
there's something green growing over here, and do I need to spray for some weeds?
Yeah.
You know, you're not growing for tonnage, you're growing for attraction. I think the other big news that's out there is, here's what's funny. I heard about this and I know about it, but it hasn't become really mainstream news. No clients asked me about it. But Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating again. I think it's important for people to understand what that means and how it potentially affects them. And if you don't know what Moody's is, Moody is a credit rating agency and just says, how likely do we believe companies or countries are to pay back the debt that they owe? And it's just like a report card. A's are better than B's and B's are better than C's, etc. And they lowered the U.S. credit rating one notch to AA1 from AAA. So AAA is the best. AA1's one notch from the best, but it's still upper level A. So it's really not that big of a deal. But the reason it becomes a big deal, and people ask, well, what does it mean? Really just means that owning U.S. debt is now riskier than it was before.
Right. And what are what can that impact? Borrowing costs going up over time.
Yeah, I think in general, as a consumer, when I hear a credit rating was lowered, I would just be thinking, well, I should get more reward now for the risk I'm taking. And that's actually been reflected in the credit markets. If you look at the 30-year bond, it was trading 5.12% this morning. The 10 years about 4.6. Now, when this airs, I don't know what it'll be. But as soon as the downgrade happened, yields rose, which makes sense because if you have more risk, you should get more return. It's the old adage. Someone's paying you 10% interest, it's got a whole bunch of risk because the U.S. government's willing to give you 5 for 30 years. You can buy a U.S. bond for 5.12% for 30 years.
Right, and that's considered to be the least riskiest asset.
Well, it was. I don't know now.
Well, but yeah, that debt was downgraded.
Yes.
It's all so Moody's was. There's other credit agencies that have downgraded the U.S. debt previously.
This isn't the first time that
over
happened.
A decade ago.
Yeah, and
so,
but why did they do it? I think that's the question, and really the reason why is because of where we are from a fiscal standpoint. You know what? $37 trillion. You know, we're passing a bill with tax cuts that adds I think it's 2.6 trillion to the deficit over the next decade. So the more debt we accrue, the more risky it is for individuals to invest in the U.S. We're still a safe haven, but it doesn't mean we always will be.
Yeah, and we still have a giant amount of debt.
That's a lot of debt. Like, who's going to, I mean, no politician really wants to do what has to happen to get rid of it. It's a combination of spending cuts and increases in taxes. It's the only way to pay it back.
To solve it.
Listen, this is really easy math. There's only 2 ways to pay back your $370,000 credit card that you owe on. If you break this into an individual household, Elias, and you have a credit card that's got $370,000 on it, and you make $70,000 a year, and your budget
get that much credit card debt making $70,000 a year. Is that even possible to do?
The U.S. government's done it. I'm giving you the exact numbers. I'm breaking this down into real world, right? 37 trillion, a $7 trillion budget, $7 trillion revenues. So bring it into the real world for people. You make 70,000. You owe 370,000 on a credit card. Your budget's 70,000 or more, right? Because we don't have a balanced budget. We're running a deficit every year. So it's actually less. How are you going to pay off the credit card?
I know how.
The first thing you can't do.
You have limited options.
Yeah.
You can cut expenses. You can make more money.
But how much can you actually cut expenses and still live? probably not that much if you're only making 70 grand, right? So you cut expenses. The only other thing to do is get a second job. How does the government get a second job?
Tax revenue.
Your paycheck. That is how the second job is achieved. It's simple math. Nobody wants to handle the problem.
You think tariffs could be a second job?
I don't know. I don't have enough data to determine that.
Yeah.
Likely not. Here's what I think about it. Great, we're going to eliminate income tax and tariffs are going to pay it. Well, yeah, but everything's going to cost more, so it's going to be the same. Like if that actually happened, yeah, you'd have more money in your pocketbook,
right?
But then you'd be willing to spend more to buy the house and all the other things, so it just causes inflation. We're just going to get to the same spot.
Yeah, and that's pretty practical, right? Or the real solution would be painful for everyone. The real solution.
I don't want to pay higher taxes. Nobody does.
Yeah, everyone would have to be willing to pay more to be able to get out of the deficit.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be willing to. Everybody's going to be required to soon. That's not the only problem out there. The debt. You had a Social Security problem coming in 2033. There's only 8 years left on the clock. Right now, I just saw the numbers. 2033, it's a 21% reduction in benefits across the board. So if this administration doesn't tackle the problem, which it's not likely they will, whoever the next president is, and House and Senate and all those things, they are going to have to solve the problem.
Yeah, they're going to raise the full retirement age.
They're gonna have to raise revenue. So, here's what I tell you: if you're a young person, that Roth IRA is your friend. That Roth 401k is your friend if you're a young person in America right now.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. If you're young and you want to build some wealth and be successful, even with all these things going on, you have to make it a priority. You have to buy assets.
Well, and I feel like we've talked about a lot of negative stuff today. It's not negative. I think long-term, the markets are going to do well. But owning assets is really the key, Elias. If you think about who's done well during inflation, it's people who owned non-depreciating assets of any kind. It didn't matter whether it was homes or whatever you owned. Non-depreciating assets.
Well, owning assets is that regardless of the economic environment, that's how you do it. I mean, that's how you do it. And really, if you think about, the stock market, anybody can get rich just by investing in the market over a long period of time.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Here's the switch that people will have or should try to have at some point in their life. Because I had it at a certain point in my life. When you're in your 20s and 30s, it's all about things, right? Well, I want to have things. I haven't had anything. I've had no things, or I've been broke and poor. I want a new car, house, I want things. And then one day you just start to ask yourself, will this increase or decrease my net worth? Does this purchase increase or decrease my net worth? And that actually starts to become a little bit of your decision tree. Because you have all the income in the world, but if you're not buying assets and investing in things that increase your net worth over time, it's irrelevant. You'll be what we call affluent. I had a banker tell me this one time. Do you know what the difference is between affluent and wealthy?
I think so. I would imagine affluent people make a good income and wealthy people probably make a good income and they have wealth. They own assets.
That's the difference.
They have things that go up in value. So it's not just their income that they can control. They have things that are going to go up in value as well.
The good examples are when you see people like the football player Adrian Peterson, who made however many tens of millions of dollars and he's broke. He was never wealthy.
AP's broke? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, AP's broke. Never wealthy. He was affluent. Nicolas Cage. Didn't Nicolas Cage blow through all his money? Pretty sure. not wealthy,
Well,
affluent.
yeah, fortunately for him, he can go do another movie and get a bunch back.
Yeah, you go make 10, 15 million pretty quick. But the problem is he's already got those spending habits ingrained. They'll just be gone again.
True. I actually saw an interview with Gronk.
Gronk?
Yeah. So
he's never spent an NFL paycheck.
Yeah, he never spent any of his NFL money. I don't know what he made, but in his he was saying the reason he did it, one, he didn't know how long he was going to play in the NFL, which is probably a good expectation to have if if you're going to be a professional football player and you think, oh, I'm going to do this for 15 years. I would say that's an unreasonable expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he figured, okay, I got this first contract. And this were his words, what he was saying in the interview. I got this first contract, figure after taxes and everything, if I do make it for 4 years, I could have about $2 million. And he's like, I could probably park that $2 million and take at least enough every year to just live, or it's at least a good start. Well, then he ended up having a Hall of Fame career. So I'm sure it's much more than $2 million now.
He made $72 million
throughout his playing career.
Yeah, from his contracts.
Yeah, he only spent his endorsement money and
right. And I just Googled this, so I don't know how accurate it is. I threw it up here, but in 2015, one of his endorsement income was estimated at $3.5 million. That's in 2015. So arguably, he's probably living on $3+ million a year while banking his $72 million in contracts.
Not a bad way to do it.
So he's wealthy, not affluent.
If Gronk can do it, so can you.
Well, and it kind of leads into, how do people become wealthy? And it's really, my guess would be in that situation, talking about Gronk, he had a pretty solid plan. Somebody helped him put a plan together for him to figure out, hey, if I set $2 million aside, I can live off the interest. Like somebody had to help him do some planning. Most people just don't come up with that on themselves. And it's really what we talk about with people. It's how do you just build resilience to all these things out there? And it's by planning for the future and putting some thought into what you're doing versus just money in, money out.
It's preparation, right? You should be prepared for the different economic cycles we're going to go through. And there's only a few things you can do, and there's really no magic bullet. But at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of responsibility and decide, I'm going to do this the right way so I can have a nice lifestyle and I can also buy assets and I can create wealth for myself and my family. And I don't know, I wish I could tell people there's a secret sauce that makes it really easy and you can be reckless with your money and things will work out, but I just don't believe in that.
Well, what people need to do is figure out how to build some resilience in their life, their financial life, and that's really about margin. How do I build a margin of error? Which comes back to savings rate. And margin of error really is the emergency fund. It's a pile of cash. If something doesn't go my way, something doesn't work out, that I've got some margin to go take care of this problem. That's how you become resilient financially.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you think about the popular financial celebrities, the Dave Ramseys of the world, why does he talk about that so much? Because it's a very basic thing that you can get right, and then you can add layers of complication to your life.
I like that.
Beyond that, but it's a very fundamental thing to get right before you move on to the next step of complication.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Elias. Appreciate everybody watching the show. If anybody's looking for help getting a financial plan put together, you can go to btwealthshow.com. If you enjoy the content, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel or the podcast. You can get us on Facebook, X, all the regular streaming platforms for podcasting, as well as YouTube. Appreciate your time and hope you tune in again in the future.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial. a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. This recording contains only general descriptions and is not a solicitation to sell any insurance product or security, nor is it intended as any financial or tax advice. For information about specific insurance needs or situations, contact your financial professional. This video is intended to assist in educating you about insurance generally and not to provide personal service. They may not take into account your personal characteristics such as budget, assets, risk tolerance, family situation, or activities which may affect the type of insurance that would be right for you. In addition, state insurance laws and insurance underwriting rules may affect available coverage and its costs. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuing company. If you need more information or would like personal advice, you should consult an insurance professional.